o'clock. Is that my mic? We'll start with the election of officers. Do we have any nominations for office of president?
I'd like to nominate Nikki Brown as president.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a nomination and a second. Any other nominations for office of president? Seeing none, any discussion? All those in favor of Nikki Brown as president, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Madam President. Moving on to nominations for vice president. Do we have any nominations for the office of vice president?
I would like to nominate Amber Humper.
Okay, we have a nomination for Amber Pumper. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Jason. Any other nominations for office of vice president? Seeing none. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of Amber Pumper as vice president, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Amber. Moving on to nominations for secretary. Do we have any nominations for office of secretary?
I'd like to nominate Stephanie Johnston as secretary.
We have a nomination for Stephanie.
I'll second that.
Okay, Amber seconded that. Any other nominations for office of secretary? Seeing none, any discussion? All those in favor of Stephanie as secretary, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Stephanie. Office of treasurer, do we have any nominations for treasurer?
I would like to nominate Jason Barnard.
Okay, we have a nomination for Jason for treasurer. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Oh, there's a tie there. We'll give that one to Lori. All right, any other nominations for treasurer? All right, any discussion? All those in favor of Jason as treasurer, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, Jason. Are now to determination of regular school board meetings. We do have the attached sheet that shows that we would be meeting on the second Monday each month at 7 p.m. with the exception of twice in the month of June and also changing the date for this coming February to the third Monday to accommodate a bond opening or a bid opening, I'm sorry. And then I think there was also maybe a change to the date of next January's organizational meeting. Anybody, would you like to make a motion to accept it as is, or do you want to modify
I'll
that?
make a motion to modify it to note that the organizational meeting will start at 6:30 with the regular meeting starting at 7.
Okay.
I know you mentioned the June, there's two, and this February is different. March and November were not the second Mondays either. They were listed as the first. And I just wanted to make sure whether that was supposed to be that way or. Because it was listed on there as March 7th and then November 7th.
Oh, yeah, we need
Oh,
the
yeah, it should be
14th.
the 14th,
Okay.
and April is correct. What was the date? You said May was?
November.
Oh, November.
The past few years, we have modified November.
Right. So I just wanted to double check when I went through those, whether there was a reason for that or if it was just maybe a.
Mhm.
No. Do you want November's on the 14th?
Yeah,
Okay,
we need to have it on the 2nd.
okay. So it would be then the second for all of those except for
February
February.
and then
Yep.
the two in
and then the 2
June.
in June.
Okay.
Did you get all those, Tina? So Stephanie made a motion. Was it seconded by anyone?
The 14th is not going to be an issue with anyone.
I'm just asking ahead of time, asking for.
Hunters.
We just won't be here.
Shocking.
Yeah.
Are
I'll
we,
support that.
Okay, so there's a second by Jason. Any discussion on that?
are we concerned about the June 20th being too early to know anything on budget, or are we happy with that date? We usually try to push that.
27th.
We usually try to push that as far back in June as possible, just so we have all the time that we need in case there is some budget stuff that,
In case the state's on time.
well,
We can definitely adjust that.
I'm just
I would
wondering.
Do the
suggest
27th.
Okay, so we want to add the 27th of June instead of June 20th.
That gives us 3 full weeks to, from
Mhm.
the,
We capture that in the
I'm gonna be,
motion, or do we need to
I'll be
modify?
gone on the 27th.
So here's one other thing to consider.
Sure.
So if it's if it with contracts, sometimes we have moved the August meeting later in the month. Especially since we're gonna have almost the back-to-back June, Julys. Did we want to move the August a little later in the month?
I mean, I like August later in the month, but that's
Mhm.
personally because of fair.
Sure, that is fair. We could definitely look at changing.
Do the 3rd Monday? Just push it a week.
Yeah, the
To
3rd or 4th.
22nd?
We just need to meet
Or no, that would
before,
be the 15th.
15th or 22nd are the choices.
When do staff come back?
Probably that Monday, the 22nd would be administrators, and then the following week would be all staff, most
why
likely.
don't we make it the 22nd then?
And then we'll maybe have an
what do you
update
want?
or.
22nd.
Sometimes we have certain things that we need to take care of right before school
Well,
starts.
we've changed that to a June 30th, July 1, right?
Yeah, for the most part. There's still some contracts that are not like that, but for most of them, we have changed it
And we're negotiating with the rest of them
this year.
soon, so we
Yeah.
won't make that change. So
Okay.
they should all be in it June 30th, July 1.
Mhm.
So maybe do the
Okay.
15th?
So I don't think that'll be an issue.
I just think that if we're having two that close together already, June, July, why don't we just push August off a little bit? And we've run into things where we've had to call a special meeting right before school starts because of things that have come up right before
Sure.
school starts. It's true.
So 15th or 20th? Do we want to move back? I think it would help for people that are going to be gone for the fair and things going on.
Anyone else have an opinion on it?
Well, the 15th falls almost right in between the July meeting and the September meeting.
So let's do the 15th.
I mean, almost exactly a month to a month.
So would you like to modify the motion?
I think we can modify the motion with all the aforementioned changes.
All right, Tina, do you have all?
You got this, Tina?
All right. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of accepting the motion with the changes made, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion is carried. Next section is the adoption of the agenda format that was attached. Are there any suggestions for the suggested order to the agenda?
I would move to approve it.
Okay, Amber has made a motion to accept the agenda format. Is there a second?
Support.
All right, support from Jason. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next is the Board of Education Committees. Would you want to talk about this? I think there was some conversation about potentially keeping
Yeah.
committees the same
Yep.
with also looking into potentially moving organizational meetings in the future to maybe be matching our school year,
Yeah.
fiscal year to do July. So I just want to.
So our fiscal year goes, as we know, July to June 30th. And Amy and I were talking, and we first started with the idea of having committees change in July. So it'd be July to June 30th. And the reason being is because of doing it in January, you got someone who's been halfway through the year, and then you take them off committee and you put them on a new committee. And so the team that they're working with is going strong, and then we as a board switch their places. Now that comes into play with elections. So what our solution is with the elections, so like this November, there'll be an election, 3 board members will be elected for January 1st start. We would then appoint them to either whoever came off the board, we would appoint them to a committee, or those that stayed on the board would continue on the committees that they're on. So it's just placing the new person on a committee if a new person is elected.
Just
So-
appointing them for that interim period
6
until we
months.
do committees in July.
Yes.
Makes sense.
And where I think this would fall best into play would be liaison. I think liaison is a committee that we need to stay a full year with, because you're gaining a lot throughout that year. Policy, DIT, the District Impact Team Committee, I think pulling someone off halfway through the year could be not ideal for that committee. But I guess I'm asking the board what they think of that process. And this is a process that other boards do have. It's not just a whim out of the air. It's something some people do.
Makes sense.
I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
I think I would say it would be appropriate though for Jason to step on the finance committee for me to step down.
Yep. Yeah, we can do our shuffle that we need to do right now if anything needs to be shuffled, but I would say the June meeting or July meeting we do reconfiguration.
Or the June 27th.
Sounds good.
Regarding organization, I think that's something we still need to draw out, but everything we do as a board is January to December. Everything the school does is July to June. So there's a lot of conflict, and we're just trying to align that conflict a little better. So, okay.
So with that being said, the plan would be then to accept the committees that are currently in place and continue those until the June 27th meeting.
With the,
Except for
Except for
finance.
finance, and I'm not sure, was it changing as well? Is that going to stay?
I think that's a discussion we will have and be ready for at the February meeting.
All right. All right, so do we have a motion then to accept the board committees as they stand?
So moved.
Support.
All right, any further discussion?
You can do that now.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
You are getting all the perks today.
I was like, oh, I could say something now.
All
Oh,
I
right.
got the next one, actually.
Okay,
All
you
right,
got
well,
this.
Take it away.
What are we doing?
The next one.
The prepared resolution for funding for the State Savings Bank and Honor Bank. Do you want to make the motion?
Sure, I make the motion that the following banks be named depositories for respective school funds during the 2022 calendar year. State Savings Bank will have the senior high school internal fund, and Otter Bank will have the general fund, checking, savings, food service account, sinking fund, account, early childhood savings, early childhood checking, debt, retirement savings, and dependent care checking.
Have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Jason.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, so now we're down to the presentation portion, so let Nikki take that away.
Shouldn't be a presentation.
So, I'm not sure if you've noticed your
I,
audience.
well, I've been picking up on it. I said no. I said nothing. Remember
Yeah.
I said last,
Well,
I
we
said I
don't.
was done after
just-
the last meeting.
Yeah, well, too bad. Okay, Mr. Childs. As you know, I'm gonna take this off. As you know, we usually don't honor a school board member till their departure from the board. But some of us felt it was imperative that your presidency not go unnoticed. I would like to begin with a quote you said to me back in 2015. It's one meeting a month, Nikki. The greatest part of this quote is I actually believed you. Joining this board, I knew that I was among friends and individuals that had one thing in common. We want to do best by the district we loved, and I can acclaim that is still true today. For 7 years, you've led by example. You had the previous board in front of us work together to tackle declining enrollment, the retirement of a superintendent with 25 plus years, and the search and journey that developed from his vacancy, on top of multiple changes in the administration team. You stood with us through an elementary school closure and turnaround of a sinking fund. And for the last 4 years, you led us through 5 ballots with bond proposals, along with the day-to-day duties of a school board president's job requirements, of meetings upon meetings and phone calls that consume your day. And let's just throw in there another superintendent search and a global pandemic on top of it. Some fun times to be had in your leadership. You have helped guide and lead us through building and grounds meetings that have brought forth many emotions to the planning table, some of them my own, apologies for that. While having so much fun at the board level, you continued thriving in your business. You also coached multiple sports, volunteered your time on building projects for the school, been a son, brother, husband, a father, an uncle, and a friend and mentor to so many. No wonder you were selected Citizen of the Year a few years ago. With all of this, you have shown humility, honor, and loyalty. You have left a footprint on this district no one will be able to fill. So, Mr. Brian B. Childs, I would like to take this time to go around the table and let my fellow board members and superintendent also share their thoughts. Who wants to start?
I can start. So as Nikki said, you've had a tumultuous presidency. I mean, you didn't take on an easy one, that's for sure. But you've always handled it with grace and professionalism. And I know that you can get riled up at times, but it never showed up at the board table, and I commend you for that. I will miss your ability to succinctly summarize what we all have said and how you are able to do it and capture it. I have been very impressed with that. You always speak from the heart with a passion for the district and the kids. So I'm glad you will still be around the table, but I will miss your leadership at the table.
Thank you.
I'll say that Brian is a big part of the reason I'm sitting here right now, and that's when before running for this position, I was on the fence because of all the gray hair, of course.
You look at my first
Start.
picture and the picture I'm about to take
But,
tonight. It is
but
leaps
no.
and bounds different.
when
I blame it on my wife, but it's really, I guess the rest of you guys here.
when you told me of your confidence in me in this position, it meant the world, and I feel that you're the epitome of what a school board member should be. So, with that, I ran, and that's why I'm sitting here. So, thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Jason.
Yeah.
Nice color.
Well, I'm not the mushy type. Thanks, Brian. Good job. Don't go too far.
Thanks, Lori. I
Gosh.
only be a skipper.
What? Oh, the stories I could tell. I just wrote you a little postcard. Basically saying thank you. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for serving the board and your community and the students of this district. And thank you for allowing me to call you El Presidente along with some other choice names that maybe you didn't care for as much.
Totally thought you'd leave that out.
But for always at the end of the day, as Stephanie has said, carrying yourself with grace and professionalism and representing our board to a degree I wasn't certain you had in you. And you've done it, and it's admirable, and thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Mr. Bryan. Your friendship blossomed through, our friendship blossomed through this board, and it's tough for me. Everybody knows I'm passionate. I love you, man. Leadership is not an easy trait. And when you speak with gravity, you do, and you listen. It comes through on the coaching field. Kids listen to you. People here listen to you. And I'm proud of knowing you. And damn, I hate it when it happens. What it boils down to is being a good human. And in the end, this whole world, it's what it boils down to is being a good human. And you are. And it means a lot. I think it means a lot to everybody in this room, this community. Nikki pointed out, citizen of the year. It's going to be tough to not see you around or to have you with your leadership, to be honest with you. You've taught me a lot. You've taught me when to shut my mouth and when to listen and when to speak. And I still have problems with that, obviously.
So that's why I'm not leaving, because we still got some
Yeah.
work to do.
But I really appreciate your leadership that you have shown throughout the years. And like I said, leadership it's not easy. It's something that not everybody can do, and not everybody should try to do it. And you did it well. And thank you for it.
Thanks, Chris.
Well, I just want to say thank you for, taking a chance on a newbie in this role. And I really appreciate the time that I got to know you and really see the passion that you have for this district. You really care a lot about it. And this has not been an easy couple of years. There's been a lot of things thrown this way, and you've had to make some really tough choices that I know don't always align with your own personal feelings. But I think that's where the true leadership stood out, is when you had to make a tough choice and do what was best for the district. And I know that wasn't easy, but you have definitely led as a servant. You care about everybody on this board, all the kids in this district, staff, and you are always going above and beyond. And I think that because of that willingness to continue to serve in every way, shape, and form, it does wear on you. So thank you for the leadership that you've given, the support you've given me. This, really made me feel good to know that you had my back and that you were willing to do that. And thank you to Kim and your family for all the time that you had to give up to have a million meetings. But this district is very lucky to have had you in this role, and I feel very blessed that I've gotten to know you this way, and that I got to start in this role with somebody that was so supportive. So thank you.
Thank you.
So to summarize the board's thoughts and the words, how Brian does so well, you're pretty awesome. I want to make it abundantly clear to all listening, Brian is not going anywhere. His presence still has 5 more years on our board, so please don't let the rumors fly. Brian, the one thing you have taught all of us, we can disagree at this table, but when we walk out that door, we remain friends. I'm proud to call you my friend, and as your successor, and from the bottom of my heart, I thank you for your service as president of the Benzie County Central School Board.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thanks everyone for showing up. Everyone in this room, I have looked up to, gotten a lot of advice from lots of phone calls, not only board members, people in the audience. Doug, I think my first 2 years on the board, I probably called you before and after every meeting saying, and I told you I was gonna, and you let me stop by and let me, and I appreciate that. Matt, I still say, I grew the most in this role when you and I would just go in that room, shut the door, and hash it out. And we've had those times where we walked in there, we shut the door, we knew we weren't agreeing with each other when we walked in, and we maybe still didn't at the end, but we knew at the end we were doing what was best for the district. So I appreciate you being willing to sit there and let me say what I had to say and work through it. But I think that was important for me in this role, and I appreciate that from you. Jason, you know how I feel about you. I'm not going to get into that. My mom and dad, thanks for showing up. That was cool. My wife obviously is, like you said, Amy. She's allowed me to do this. I love this district. I love working with this board. I'm so proud of who we are as a board and the work that we do, and how we truly do care and respect for each other, and how much we care and respect for this district and want the best. Amy, you know how I feel about you too. You are the right person for this job right now. Nikki, thank you for doing this, even though I said I didn't want it done.
Don't listen to them.
But thanks. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So-
And supported?
Yep.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Okay.
Back to you, Rick.
So do we want to take 5 minutes and
We can do that. Do you want to take the photos now? You want to do the little cupcake thingy and then we?
I say we do photos before the cupcake thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
probably.
You wanna wait till the end for
Yeah.
photos? Okay.
Where would you like them to be? Wherever you like.
So please, everyone, help yourself to cupcakes so we don't have to take them home. Because if they go home, they're going home with Brian. So
Do you,
Sorry, Kim.
Do you guys wanna?
Can we all fit under the screen?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
do that?
Who's gonna be first to start the cupcake?
Sheree?
There you go. Good job, Sheree.
First picture, and then let's do one of the basketball. Does everyone hold their breath? I have if we all shoulder, put Brian in the middle. And then Nikki on the other side of him. There we go.
I'd like to call this meeting to order at 7:37 PM. Can we stand? Oh, actually, yes. Can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I had the wrong agenda in front of me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I get approval of agenda, please?
So moved. Or support.
He doesn't remember the order, so.
Any
Maybe a little bit.
discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consent grouping, can I get a motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? District impact team update, Steph.
We only had 2 meetings due to the holiday break, so just a few things to summarize. At one meeting, we received an update from Amber about all of the goal data that came in, and we uncovered at the early childhood program low math skills early on, but high positives in the classroom climate, teacher sensitivity, behavior management, productivity, and emotional support. Student data for social emotional skills was also very high at 65% for the fall. And then the next meeting we had, we examined the data from the special education surveys, and Cheryl Corey met with the special education PLC group this past Friday to share all the thoughts that we came up with based on that data. So 2 good data dives for 2 good meetings.
Okay. Any questions for Stephanie? Moving on. Do we have a student council report?
No.
Okay. Administration report. First thing off is NIMSLA.
Sure. So we had a NIMSLA update today with Representative John DeMoose. He talked to us and shared some of his agenda items, but then also was collecting feedback from the superintendents from the Northwest region. We did share with him concerns that we have around COVID and the impact that it's had on days of instruction, and concerns about being able to meet the full 180 days this year. And so there was one of the superintendents from Johannesburg, Lewiston, shared that they had to close for 5 days, that they've already hit their 9 days last week. And so we did offer up some suggestions about dropping the 180-day requirement this year, but continuing to follow the 1098 hours. We usually do not have an issue meeting hours, but we do sometimes have an issue with meeting days. And due to the fact that we've had a lot of sickness with staff and students, that of course is impacting things. And of course, we live in Northern Michigan, so it is winter and we haven't even really hit our stride with that yet. So he said he was definitely going to continue to look into those Senate bills that have been proposed. There was also some conversation about the substitute bill that was passed on the 5th, I believe was the date. That bill allows us to use district staff to sub as teachers. So that would be secretaries, parapros, bus drivers, custodians. They could fill in as a teacher substitute this year. But it doesn't allow us to take people that might be in will sub that are parapros and sub as teachers. So there was a little bit of confusion about that when it first came out, but it is just current district staff. It is helpful at times when we might need a teacher to fill in, and parapros can do that. But generally, this is probably not going to be super helpful for us because it's, robbing Peter to pay Paul kind of thing. But I know that, we've been in situations where we can't get a teacher sub, and parapros usually are spending a lot of time in classrooms and know those classes really well and students, so they can carry on the routine sometimes better than somebody from the outside. And then the dates coming up on January 14th was the Consensus Revenue Estimating Conference. The State of the State Press Conference will be held virtually this year on January 26th. And The executive budget should be released sometime around February 2nd. We also brought up on the call today that there are several school districts that are currently going through bonds and having all their bids coming back over budget and having very low bidder participation, which is obviously something that's impacting us. And they were going to look into some options that the college level has to, there's some capital outlay funds. So David Ladd was going to look into what options we might have available to us. Usually you have to have a bond that was more than 7 mils in order to qualify for anything like this. So they're going to look into that. Along with that, I did call Troon today, and I was told because we went unqualified, we have a lot of flexibility in how we look at our projects moving forward, and that we do still have 2 more bond series that could be combined into one. And those dollars are not earmarked for anything specific. So it could be that those dollars could be used for other projects that maybe we don't have funding for now. So there is some flexibility. But David Ladd said he would get back to us as well and see if there's any options at the state level. That's it from NIMSLA. Any questions about that?
Regarding the substitute bill that was passed a couple weeks ago regarding staff, do we need to do anything with contracts to change wording in that, or is that?
I have been waiting to hear back from Joe Washington about another issue further down the, and I have planned to ask him about that. Currently, what we've been doing with those parapros that are subbing for teachers, they just get the difference in the substitute daily rate for teachers added into their contract. So we give them the higher amount of the day. Else? Okay. Next on here is our audit review from Dennis Gartland and Nygarth with Julie Burks, I'm sorry. And I think Julie is online. Is that correct? She left. So she's not on right now. She's not on at all. Is that what you said?
Unless you just wanted to call her to call in. But he was here.
Okay. Do you, Julie, if you're online right now, can you unmute?
Can we call her? Or?
I think we have her phone number on. Do you know what her number was? Did you see it on there? Do you want me to look it up real quick?
Just send her an email that we're back on.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Maybe we can keep moving forward then and
Circle back.
circle back with her. All
Did
right.
she send the, do we have like the,
She was supposed to send the books. She sent them on Friday. They were supposed to be here today. Unfortunately, I also got the mail today from FedEx that there were 2 bids in there for the sealed bid that were supposed to be delivered overnight on Wednesday, and they came today. So I'm not really having a lot of faith in the mail, but I will get you your bound edition. I did share with you the PDF version this afternoon so that you at least have that. I'm sure you didn't get time to look through all 100 pages of it, but
what? I did.
oh, well, good job. That's why you were a great treasurer. So I guess, do we want to just skip ahead from the audit now and
Yeah,
go?
if she comes
Yeah.
back on.
She's going to get back on.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, Katina.
Just waiting.
I was gonna say, none of these are short.
I was
No.
looking to see if there were.
Resignation and retirement's the only one that's really short.
When,
Is it bright light a quick one?
yeah, the bright light's pretty quick. We could talk about that one. I brought the new R0. This one is the R0 machine. We have one for every building. The high school has 2, one for the middle school end, one for the high school end. These take about 7 minutes to clean around 1,000 square feet of classroom space. So the current plan right now is that the custodians take it into a classroom, they plug it in, They turn it on and it won't start if there's any activity in there. So if there's, people in there, classroom animals, things like that, it won't start if there's movement in there. It senses it.
Right, either.
Yeah. So essentially it takes 7 minutes. So the custodians sort of have a routine where they take it to a room, plug it in, shut the door, go back and do whatever they were doing before, then come back after 7 minutes, move it to the next room, turn it on, and go and clean that room.
So what do we do about classroom animals?
Is it safe for them?
It is not. I
I was
mean, and
gonna
that's why
say.
it shuts off. So any living thing will
Those rooms don't
will
get.
cause it to stop. So I don't know if they've been moving the animals out when they do it. I will have to check. There's only a few
I was gonna
classrooms.
say, do we have many? 'Cause
I
most
think you
teachers-
have one, right? Do you know what they're doing in your room?
Right now they're taking it.
Taking it home at night?
Okay. Perfect.
So somebody asked earlier how we know it's actually working. When they came and did the demo, they actually have like air quality cards that show that, what it was like prior and then what it's like after the room has been sanitized. Mike had talked about maybe getting some of those so that we could double check to make sure the efficiency of it. But the custodians have told me that they can tell the difference by smell, that there is definitely a smell that something has happened in there, sort of, not really a burnt odor, but something along that lines, that
Hair dryer or
there's a
something.
difference that's happened in the room. And so this is UV light technology. It kills anything. It kills flu, bacteria, virus, things like that. And then we also installed the ionization cartridges in the air handling units at Lake Ann and Crystal Lake. And then I believe the high school and I believe the auditorium and then the gymnasium at Betsy Valley. And then moving forward with the bond projects, the air handling units will have that ionization technology. Each bus was supposed to have them, but they didn't realize we don't have AC on our buses.
Are there buses that honestly have AC on?
I guess, well, they're from North Carolina, so I think
Oh,
that's
well,
like the
that's a
normal.
different story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not that much.
So they have to retrofit the cartridges to work for our buses. So they'll have a fan and a cartridge at the back of the bus that will blow it forward. So we're still working on getting those here. But the hope would be that those would come in the next month or so and be able to install those in our buses.
What's the effectiveness of those with windows open then?
I don't know. I would have to ask about that. I know, like, as long as the air is circulating in there, then the fan is running and it's running on the ionization. So that's why down where they're at, they use the AC because it can be on as just a blower during the months when it's, not as hot. Shian? Yeah, okay. All right, so we'll go back up to our audit review with Julie Burks. Hi, Julie.
Hi, can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Do you like video or can anyone see me?
What did she say, Brian?
Let me see. Can you hear me better like that?
Yes.
Okay. Do you care about video? I can turn it on, I can leave it off. If no one can see me, I'll just leave it off.
We can see you if you turn it on.
Oh, okay. There we go. Hey, everyone. I almost left the meeting. So that was really, I feel like every time I do the audit presentation, I follow just a warm, fuzzy, touching moment, whether it's kids presenting the coolest Halloween things or, Brian's recognition. So that was really neat to be a part of and hear. So we'll go through the audit. There is a bit more to go through this year than other years. And all of you are kind of aware of what happened this year with audit readiness. If there's anything with sound or anything, stop me and just tell me to fix it. My setup's kind of funny right now. You should have 3 items in front of you: an audit-related communication letter, financial statements, and a set of graphs. We'll start. I'm going to kind of intertwined the audit-related communication letter and the financial statements, pieces of it, just for efficiency's sake. But if you want to first take out the audit-related communication letter, we'll start there. I will go on to say that big picture, it was a clean opinion, an unmodified opinion, which is the highest level of assurance that you can get. I'll touch on some things in the audit-related communication letter that is also reflected in the financial statements. We'll go through the financial statement highlights through looking at a couple items in the MD&A, and then we'll look at the graphs last. So the first page of the audit-related communication is just talking about the year that we audited, that we were under uniform guidance. The bottom of the first page talks about compliance and internal controls. On the second page, it goes into material weaknesses and findings that we had, but I am going to jump ahead really quick just so I'm not kind of going back and forth. On the third page, and I'm going to end everything on a high note today because the district did well in fiscal 21. But on the bottom of the third page, it does talk about what we ran into with the audit this year. A lot was caused by kind of just a snowball effect with situations down to the change in accounting software, quite a bit of staff turnover, and that resulted in bank accounts not being reconciled, other accounts not being reconciled. We had to push back field work a few times, and then by the time we actually kind of had our drop dead week of this is the last we can do it, the bank account still hadn't been reconciled. So it just kind of pushed us into a mode where we missed the state of Michigan's filing deadline, which that impacts when you receive state aid. So I just wanted to touch on that first. I think all of you are aware. I tried to communicate with you guys throughout the process, but we got there. We got there in the end. So if you want to go back to page 2, we'll just kind of talk about the impacts that this had. Top of page 2 talks about material weaknesses, and the first of the 3 findings of those are routine findings that we have every year. The cost benefit analysis doesn't make sense to implement more staff for segregation of duties and additional training for preparation of financial statements. So those are repeat. The third one is the bank reconciliations not being prepared timely. And because that has such an impact on nearly every account, we did identify that as a material weakness for fiscal 21. And then there was a material instance of noncompliance because the State Aid Act, there's a compliance requirement that says that it has to be filed by November 1. We found that as a noncompliance that the district missed that filing deadline. And then the bottom of the page talks about kind of our recommendations of how to remove those findings next year. And I work closely with the business office and Justin and talked with Amy quite a bit about these things. And the information that we got at the end of the audit was that there's going to be policies and procedures in place to have a 30-day close, not only with the accounts, but with reconciling the banks, and then also a potential review by the superintendent each month. That kind of piggybacks on the last comment with the timely audit package submission, that if you have a 30-day close, there really shouldn't be any issue at year end being ready for your audit and filing it by November 1st. And then just in the middle, the inventory tracking, that was just kind of in the midst of everything, I think an account that just never really got looked at. And because there's really little change from year to year, we didn't identify it as a material misstatement because we really didn't know what the account was. But it just kind of goes along with everything that, you know, a new finance director, new accounting software, things not being done throughout the year, that's all changing and in process. So I kind of foresee these things going away next year. Do you have any questions or any comments with that? When you have an issue where accounts are being reconciled, that is pretty clear that there's going to be quite a few entries, both identified by management and some identified through the audit. So page 4 goes through the list of the adjustments that were made. The first section of the district's corrected adjustments resulting from bank account reconciliations are what Justin identified throughout reconciling the entire fiscal year's worth of bank accounts. The biggest one is recording state aid, but that's actually just 1 month where it went into the bank account, but it just never hit the accounting software. The next section is the adjustments that we found through the audit. The couple big ones, there was an accrual at year end for bond construction costs. The amount looks big, $175,000. However, that was just one invoice, and with kind of all the construction going on, it just got missed as being accrued. So that got adjusted there. And then the other larger one is the special revenue fund activity for student activity fund, which is new this year with one of the GASBs that got implemented. And then at the bottom of the page, as the banking accounts were being reconciled, there was very minor differences that just kind of couldn't be identified. And because we just had to move on, these are going to be looked at in fiscal 22. And again, none of them are really material to the financial statements. The last part of the letter talks about some upcoming standards, and these actually have been on this letter for a few years now. So leases, which the district doesn't have any leases as of now, so that won't be an impact. And then a new reporting standard, which is going to change the layout of the audit report and just kind of talk about other responsibilities of management. And probably the board won't see anything different in the financial statements other than the opinion letter, and just kind of reorganizing that. If we want to go into the financial statements, again, I mentioned that it was an unmodified opinion, highest level of assurance. We'll look at the MD&A just to kind of cover some government-wide highlights, and then we'll get into the graphs and look at some of the fund trends. But if you go to page III, that's going to be the district's net position, a summary of the current year, fiscal 21. I guess it's last year now, but fiscal 21 and fiscal 20. And some of the highlights there are that total assets and deferred outflows of resources increased $40 million related to the bond issue. Net pension obligation and net OPEB obligation. I think for the last few years, I've been saying that those are big numbers and that it just takes, a slight breath to make it go one way or the other. So the net pension obligation went up $559,000 in fiscal 21, and the OPEB obligation went down $1.4 million. And if you're curious, you can turn to page 28 and 34, and that gives you the swing of what 1% different in the discount rate will do, which just gives you an idea of how it's a moving target and just an estimate. And then total liabilities increased $39 million, and that's directly related to the bond issue as well. Net position on the government-wide level increased $1.75 million, and most of that is due to the general fund increase that we'll look at in just a minute. The next page is the changes in the district-wide net position. Not a ton of change there. Total revenues decreased about $100,000, and total expenditures decreased about $217,000. So a more favorable growth in the district's net position. Part of that increase too is what I'll get to in a second with the adoption of GASB 84, which is that fiduciary activity in the student fund, student activities fund that's new. The next page looks at capital assets and long-term debt. There's a lot going on with the bond project, and in fiscal 21, only $273,000 of additions went into service, so are being considered depreciable assets. but there was 1.2 million that was in progress. So those are capital assets not yet being depreciated. And I can imagine that just in the next 2 years, it's going to go bonkers and be a lot more. And then the debt, as you're all aware, there was a bond issued. So that is where that growth comes from. And the majority of debt at the end of fiscal 2021 was paid off. We're not going to jump around the statements too much because I think it's more fun to look at the graphs and look at the trends. But on page 15 is our disclosure about the change in accounting principles where GASB 84 was adopted and 91,000 was reinstated as fund balance and net position to put that fund in place and take it out of fiduciary activities. With the single audit, there was a lot more federal revenue in the current year due to COVID. We do a major program determination based on the size of different programs. There were no type A programs, which means there was no single program that was greater than 750,000. So then it becomes just a coverage issue. So we tested Child Nutrition Cluster as a major program and Title II as a major program. Neither of the programs had any findings related to compliance, so all very clean there. But if you do look in the back pages of the financial statements, you'll see the listing of the findings that I kind of touched on in the letter that we just went through. But it talks about the criteria, condition, cause, and the effect. We won't go into that now. I think I kind of described enough of what was occurring that caused them. But that's at the back of the financial statements if you do want to read through. And if you were ready to move on to graphs, anybody can raise a hand and I can stop and answer questions if you want. If you want to open up your graphs, we'll go through these. These are kind of a nice way to look at trends of the district. It's interesting because I think that, as exciting as accounting is to me and to everyone in the room there, I'm sure, I really love the way these graphs go because the last one is just kind of where the fireworks happen. I don't get to, past couple of years, I haven't gotten to do my fireworks. So we'll start with the general fund revenue trends. This is going to be a 5-year look. The bar on the right side is 2021. And so you can see the local sources increase, state sources pretty consistent, federal had a big jump, other is kind of back and forth. The local is property tax, and that went up 4%, which is really the reason why that went up. Federal revenue, a lot of COVID dollars, and that's the reason that it jumped there. In other revenue, there was a slight increase, and that's related to the Strong Beginnings program, and then also some GSRP funds. State revenue stayed flat, and it was kind of interesting because student count went down, which drives the foundation allowance. However, there was a lot of other dollars flowing through state aid that kind of offset that. So a lot of the MIPSRS dollars increased while some of the foundation allowance items went down just due to student count. On the next slide, this is a 2-year trend looking at percentages of revenue for the general fund. And it's pretty consistent. The one thing really skewing the percentages is the increase of federal dollars. Otherwise, these are really consistent. So that one's not too exciting. Third slide is the expenditure trends. And again, a 5-year look. Most of these costs are payroll and benefit related. So when you look at instruction, it looks like the instruction expenditures went down, and that's a direct relationship to the payroll. Salaries and benefits went down about 5%, but that was offset by some increases in capital outlay. And then if you look at supporting services, that jumped up a little bit, and kind of the same thing. Salaries and benefits were fairly flat, but there were some increases in capital outlay. And food service, that went down just slightly, and the biggest reason was just a decrease in food costs. Fourth slide, similar to revenue, this is looking at a 2-year trend with percentages of expenditure group to total. And this is super consistent from year to year. Total of instruction and support together makes up 92.4% of total expenditures for 2021. And in 2020, it was 91.6. So less than 1% change with how those dollars are being allocated with what type. The next slide is expenditure per pupil. I actually like these ones because it lets the district know how dollars are being utilized. When you look at the state trend and compared to the district, the state is always 1 year behind. So looking at fiscal 20 to the state average is probably more comparable. And especially with COVID and some of the impacts there, that's going to play a role on 2021 more so than 2020. But again, the majority of expenditures are instruction and support, which is going to be the next slide. You can see that except for supporting services, the district is utilizing dollars per student per pupil better than the state average. Support services, though, one of the factors with that one could be capital outlay. The things that kind of swing it and kind of put it out of line with the state average are generally not so much instruction or salaries and benefits, but it's the other things like supplies, purchase services, capital outlay, cost of living adjustments, where the districts are at, size of the district, and all that. And the next slide is looking at specifically salaries and benefits compared to the state average. And with the district, you can just look on the bar graph. Benzi's utilizing those salaries and benefits dollars per student better than the state average. And that just is really great to see because it means every dollar spent, more is going to the students than what the state's showing. The next slide is looking at general fund and special revenue fund and the trend, a 10-year trend of looking at revenue to expenditures. A few years back, there was some issues with the district getting close to that 5% mark of having fund balance all too close to expenditures, which we'll look at in the next slide. But you can see that there's been more effort to control expenses starting in 2018 through 2021. There's higher property tax values, there's a little bit more federal revenue, but then the district is still watching expenditures. So that's really kind of taken a leap. In fiscal 21 in particular, there was about a $1.8 million increase in general fund balance. And so that really kind of put that differential out there. The last slide is looking at 10-year trend of fund balance as a percentage of general fund expenditures. And back in 2017, when the district was at the 5% mark, I remember vividly tons of efforts being made to get out of that. And again, this last year with that increase in fund balance due to circumstance, COVID, cutting costs, a 4% overall decrease in salaries and benefits, and that being 90-some% of the total expenditures really has an impact on where it puts the district with revenues and expenditures. So the district ended at 33% of fund balance to expenditures. And it's one of those things that like, woo, that looks great, but you always want to be careful too that it doesn't get too high because then it might imply that, it's time to spend down that fund balance for the district, for the students. The district's also had a funny time with, having so many projects going on, tons of inflow for COVID. So many districts are just being handed money that it's hard not to be in this situation if a district has been on the trend of cutting costs along the way. So I shouldn't have any opinion one way or another, but it's nice to see a healthy district. And again, I'm going to go back to honoring Brian, and I just have to say it's been so fun to work on this district over the years. I think this is my 12th year on this audit, and what you all may not know is I come from California and Oregon, but one of my first exposures to Michigan was due to my husband, who grew up in Midland and spent his summers in Beulah. So Benzie County is kind of my first initiation to Michigan, and so dear to my heart. Are there any questions I can answer? If anyone is talking, I can't hear.
Okay, sorry, Julie.
We were muted, we didn't realize it.
Does anyone have?
I guess I can't hear anyone. So if someone wants to give me a thumbs up or like, okay. Thank you all.
They were wonderful.
Can I ask, how does billing go with them? Do they bill us for hours, or is it a contract, or?
I believe it's a contract, but they bill out certain chunks of the amount as they go.
Okay,
So I think we probably have one more bill coming from them.
Okay.
But yeah, it's done as a contracted amount,
okay. Thank you.
which is
Hopefully
good.
Next year will be less work for them.
Yeah, that's my thoughts here.
One of the things, and I don't know if Justin is on, if he wants to speak at all, but Justin has been working with Danielle in the office, as well as Lisa Purchase is going to be doing her internship in the office. So they have a plan that when she's coming in to do her hours for her internship, that she'll be helping work on the reconciliations and getting everything ready for the audit. So as each month closes out, they'll have the whole month done and put it aside, ready for the audit, all paperwork that goes with it, so. Can you tell if he's on, Bernie?
We have 4 people on. I don't know who they are.
Okay. I didn't know if he wanted to share anything, but now that Jason is the treasurer, then he'll be meeting regularly and he can report back on all of the policies that we've put into place
I will do my best.
to make sure that we are in a good spot moving forward.
Okay, on to the transportation building.
Yeah, so basically, I asked Chris to be here online, but he is an overachiever and came in person, which is awesome. So we just had our bid opening for the high school locker room, weight room, and Betsy Valley. And so we wanted Chris to share with us about that. And then we've had lots of conversations about where to go. So I don't know if you just want to dovetail it all together. If that works for you. Do you want me to start with Chris?
I don't know. Who do we want to start with? Sure. You can give the kind of the general
I'll give you
rundown
this
of,
so you can,
All right, well, I'm Chris with Wolgas. For those of you that don't know me, I'm project manager for the bond work that we have going on. So just to recap, just real quickly, we passed this bond after many efforts. Different superintendent, different project manager, now we're all in this boat. All of this work was budgeted prior to COVID. So year by year, the world that I live in, we usually budget 3% increases year by year. You know, that's relatively straightforward. It's been pretty consistent. As you're all aware, COVID really disrupted all of that in a lot of different ways. And it is still a situation that we're trying to understand and trying to navigate. We put bids out. We currently have Lake Ann under contract. Lake Ann was a 2-classroom addition. That project did come in over budget. We did fund it by reducing the contingencies for all the other projects equally, because it's not fair to pull, empty a contingency on one project just to fund a different one. So we evenly distributed the contingency drop over all the projects to fund the 2-classroom addition at Lake Ann. Very simple, straightforward addition. There wasn't a whole lot to cut. There isn't a lot of wants in there. It's all need. So even the uppercase work did not get bid because at this point it wasn't necessary. That took our contingency to 8.2% for every project. Not an issue. You know, we're comfortable in that boat. The problem with what we did is that was a one-time deal. We could only do that one time, one project. So we are working on the new elementary school, which is the biggest piece to this puzzle. That bid is going to come out in 2 weeks. We are going to receive documents on the 19th, and hopefully we'll be out on the street on Friday the 21st. So that being the largest piece of the puzzle, there's a lot of concern about, hey, we need to make sure that we have some options when we get there if things don't go our way. So we did open the high school weight room addition and the locker room renovation. We had both of those. That project was bid as one bid, but we had it separated into 2 particular numbers so we could try and separate the weight room number from the renovations in the locker rooms, because they were budgeted separately when we did all our initial meetings. We also opened Betsy Valley. Betsy Valley's getting some HVAC, some ceilings, and a roof. All necessary items. The school's in need of that. We did the parking lot last year. So how this all shook out is, I think to Amy's statement, the state is seeing 20 to 30% increases in construction costs throughout the state, not just this district, not just the Lower Peninsula, and not just bond work. It's construction in general, and this is all based on pre-COVID budget numbers. Is where this 20 to 30% number is coming from. So difficult decisions have to be made, and that's one of the reasons I came in person, because not only does the district need to decide likely that they can't move forward with one of the projects, but not only are we not going to be able to move forward with it, we're going to have to pull the funding from that job, reallocate it to other projects to make them move forward, and that's not always an easy decision. So Betsy Valley, all in all, is about 20% over budget. Again, it could be funded through various sources, and that's some of the minutia that the board needs to get into on how to do that. The locker room renovation and the weight room addition are all nearly 30% over budget. Again, it is not a design thing. It is not, we built it bigger than the bond scope. All along, the bond scope is relatively general, but it does say, hey, a 6,000 square foot this and a 2-classroom that. We've stayed within those limits and or reduced them as much as possible. There's been canopy reductions and glass reductions and things to cut the wants out and make sure it fits the needs in an effort to get to these budget numbers that we're trying to get. And obviously the goal is to make sure the district can get the most out of these bond dollars, and that's the goal that we're trying to do. Everybody has spent an exhaustive amount of time to try and get that down the road as far as possible. So with that being said, we also reevaluated the transportation building. So the transportation building came in again nearly 30% over budget. Nothing that the contingency could support or any other funding source at this point without giving something up. So we did some value engineering. The district and the whole team looked at, how can we reduce it and still make it a functional bus garage. So the long and short of it was reduced by 1 bay. There was some site work and site lighting and some various things, but again, it still needs an office. It still needs some bays. There still needs to be parking. I mean, there's still a certain amount of items that are necessary to make it, call it a bus garage. We did some value engineering. We were able to reduce that overage by only about 30%. So there is still 60%. It is still 60% over budget. So in order to get rid of that 60%, you really have to eliminate all the bays or the entire office. So you wouldn't be getting what you wanted. So in an effort to move forward, the district's got to decide, does it make sense to pause on the transportation building? Because there is one. Does it make sense to pause on the weight room addition? Because there currently is a functioning weight room. So those are some of the difficult decisions that need to be made, but not only do we need to pause on that project, like I mentioned, we need to pull that funding. So that funding, and I'll use the transportation building as an example because that's the easiest one. By all rights, if we pull that funding forward, we would be able to put those dollars into the overage for the weight room and the locker room renovation and proceed. Now, the challenge with that is we're going to lose a project, but potentially for good. And we only have one other phase after the new elementary school. There is a phase 2 for the high school. There is obviously things on there. Again, all of these items are a need, not a want. But it's limiting our flexibility to try and fund everything. Obviously, the new elementary is a big deal, the biggest piece to this puzzle. And obviously, we want to see that move forward efficiently. So that's the elementary remodel. We came to the board today with a board recommendation with the anticipation of moving that project forward. We had posted this bid with 8 plan rooms, including the Sigma and State site. Went out to bids with the Record Eagle and the Record Patriot. And we sent it out to our internal bidders list, which is about 1,700 bidders and contractors and suppliers in about a 300 or 400 mile radius around Benzie. Try and get the whole state basically is the goal. Bidder response, we had 13 bids that were received for the 5 bid divisions. They were opened on January 5th at 2 p.m. They were open and read out loud publicly. We conducted post-bid interviews for the 5 low bidders, and the award recommendation is attached. I believe you guys have it. In the amount of $1.465,371, $1,465,371. Again, it is slightly over budget, and again, it's all the material supply issues that we're running into. So not only are we seeing the 20 to 30% over in received bids, we are also seeing low bidder participation. Again, that's throughout the state. About half of the bid divisions that we put out for bids are receiving single or only 2 bids, which is something I've never seen before. Also, we have a mounting supply chain issue, and that supply chain issue continues to move from blue nail-on electric boxes that aren't at Home Depot to buy. I can't even believe anybody touches those before they're bought at the store. To roofing products, to boiler and HVC electrical, I mean, you name it. We were told that if you ordered roofing foam today, it wouldn't show up till September. The last time I checked, school's in session in September. And so, most districts with the summer construction season, that June through end of August, and it's not just a concern with contractors and suppliers, we also are running into challenges with the state as well for turning around drawings, receiving plan reviews, and getting timely inspections. So we are managing a knot. We're trying to untangle it, but unfortunately there is a budget concern. Obviously, we don't want to move forward unless the projects can be funded, and I realize these are difficult decisions to make, but I would rather pause on a project and see if we can't turn it around and see what kind of budget numbers we come into. Obviously, make sure we take change orders and extras, look at it very critically. There is a decent contingency when you still look at the entire project. 70% of all change orders for schools are owner requests. They are not unforeseens or surprises. And they come in all forms, both additions, new construction, and renovations. So we can keep that in mind. We will be still under construction during the 2023 summer. So there is another opportunity to potentially move forward with the transportation building or some other piece of the puzzle if it makes the most sense. We also want to make sure we are considerate to our bidders by making these decisions in a timely manner. We have about the same pool that we see bidding on it. It's the same area. So we don't want to pause on something and just hope they're going to wait around. We've got some other bids we want to participate in. We've been very fair with them all, trying to keep them up to speed within reason, because at the end of the day, it is a board's decision. And, we'd like everybody to be on the same page. So So I'm here to take some abuse if necessary, to answer any questions if you guys need it. We are all on the same team, and I realize it can be a little bit frustrating. I can answer questions. If you're not aware, Amy and the team here is very well versed on what's going on. But I felt it necessary to come see you guys in person with all the decisions that need to be made, and help guide you guys through that with whatever I can do. So appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys. If you have any questions for me before I sit down, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you. What about the bids that came in late? I mean, is that too bad, so sad?
It is. It is. So, I mean, inevitably, at the end of the day, the district has that decision. We had, I think, 5 bids or 4 bids show up late on bid day. One of them wasn't too late, and it was a inclement weather day, but you need to plan for that. And then several of them came in about 45 minutes late. So, you know, our paperwork states that if it shows up late, it's to be returned unopened. We haven't returned some of them yet because we haven't made the decision on the weight room addition and locker room remodel. We haven't post-bid anybody yet. So after the bids are received, we choose the low bidders, usually out of the gate. Just whoever's low, even if it's a scary low number, and just start. We've got a lengthy 6-page post-bid interview that we go over with every contractor. And the goal is to make sure they didn't miss anything. So with the project being over budget, and we did separate it out into 2 columns, you know, and they're both appropriate, they both 30% over budget. At this point, we haven't post-bid interviewed those folks yet because there's no use going through all that time if a re-engineering or value engineering needed to take place. The downside of that is we haven't verified that nobody missed anything. So that overage that we have could potentially be slightly greater if we find out that a contractor missed something or misinterpreted something. In the bidder pool that we have, none of that stuff's intentional. You know, it's a decision between the drawings, and you know, we just need to dig it out. So, but that's part of our process in the post-bid interview. So, unfortunately, the late bids are normally something that we don't take a peek at. So.
I do think we are kind of missing the boat there, though, because we've got 2 things working against us. We have a low bidder pool, and we are way over budget. Like, I'm sorry, 45 minutes to me doesn't mean a hell of a beans. If we get more participation in the bid and possibly a lower bid, like, I really think we probably need to look at loosening those guidelines a little bit. And I get it's frustrating, and we, you know, they need to try to be here as on time. That is part of it, but all these other factors, I would much rather open one that showed up 45 minutes late and maybe save $100,000 on something or have, you know, a bid at all than just to say, well, sorry, I get it in different times. That probably made sense, but we are in way different times now. So maybe we need to talk about that down the road, you know, and
we can. I do believe it's a state requirement. It's no different than the affidavits that they have to fill out, you know, in the Irania. They're not my rules or your rules or the state's rules. And because this is bond tax dollars, there are some requirements. It's not like general fund money. There are limits and caps. You know, there's bonding limits, and even something that's bid for less than $26,000 technically doesn't need to go out for competitive bid. But obviously, 90% of everything we've got going on here, it does need to meet those requirements. Now, it's different when nobody shows up for those proposals. You know, then the rules change a little bit, but that's very much a gray area. You know, because that's something we haven't seen in the past was this low bidder participation. Now, we've also asked the contractors that we've been interviewing, hey, why aren't we getting more participation? And they all kind of say the same thing. You know, the plates are full. They cannot find help. So they don't want to bury the folks that they have so deep that they lose them because there isn't anybody to replace them. And we've gotten that similar story from flooring guys, electrical guys, HVAC guys. And we are still, to my knowledge, getting the same bidder pool for the next go round. And everybody we talked to here in the last couple sets of post bids is still, hey, when's the school coming out? You know, we plan to bid on it and stuff. So those are all good things. But at the end of the day, we do have a couple projects here lingering, and we will need to make a decision. The transportation building was opened in November, I believe, and those folks are still waiting to hear, are we moving or not? And again, they're half of them bid on the next set of work. So again, difficult decisions, but you know, we need to work through them as a team and make sure we have a clear path moving forward because even though this stuff's, you know, a little clumsy once we hit construction, which is right around the corner here, April, Things are gonna move hot and heavy, and because of the material supply chain challenges, it is very, very important that we jump on that stuff immediately.
Yep.
I only imagine we're gonna run into some challenges come the start of the school year, but I'd rather those challenges not be on us. I'd rather it be because this widget didn't show up, or that state inspector can't get here because he's on vacation, whatever the case may be, but, trying to take that away from us. So I think the engineering team, the staff at Benzie, and the team at Wolgas has done their level best to try and make sure we get not only the right outcome for Benzie, but also something that you guys are gonna be able to live with for the future, because it's been said in meetings more than once that, at the end of the day, the district still gets to keep whatever's left behind. So we want to leave an absolutely quality product behind, and none of this pricing challenges, there's nobody to blame for that. It's no different than buying your groceries or a new car right now. So I'm just trying to make those dollars go down the road the farthest, and that has been a foggy road, I will admit. So.
Chris, just to your question, one of the bids that came in was actually driven here. So that one did end up getting open. Just didn't make it in time for FedEx.
Yeah, and then the FedEx, the UPS ones that were supposed to come on Wednesday that showed up on today, that's crazy.
Yeah, tell your bidders not to use FedEx.
Yeah.
That's really not fair to them. If it was guaranteed to be here and then now it's not here, then
I'm
it's not.
surprised I didn't get a phone call. So normally when that happens, there's somebody calling me right away, you didn't open my bid, or, I have not gotten that, so I'm surprised that didn't happen.
I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
I think FedEx's guarantee is gone right now because I sent a bunch of stuff for work the other day and they made it sure I knew that it was not going to get there when I wanted it. So I think they took it away for the holidays, unfortunately.
Can
And
you
what?
guys hang tight
Yeah.
to keep it any longer, but we're gonna kind of discuss like what the Benzie Core team talked about today, and that might generate some questions for you after we kind of discuss what we discussed.
Yeah.
Be great.
We might want to pull up a chair up.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that right now?
I think we probably should.
Yeah.
That way, if anyone has questions for
Sure.
Chris, we can.
Before you go into this, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Having just looked at the audit, it looks as though the fund balance is in really good shape. Like really, like never in my lifetime good shape. Could somebody give me a rough estimate? How much money that represents and what of that we could conceivably use to what we're looking at for this? And percentage-wise, how much of our over budget stuff could realistically be addressed by that? And I think before we get into any of the specifics of what we need here and what we need there, I'd like to know, honestly, approximately, how much money we could throw at this.
Sure. So it's about 4 million, a little over 4 million. And
That we have to play with.
that's in the fund balance. right
Okay.
now, Yes. And
I
just.
wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that.
Sure. And Justin and I have been working with all of the ESSER dollars that come as much as we possibly can. We are trying to offset the cost of staffing, which frees up general fund dollars. So that's why you're seeing that there's additional funds in there, because we tried to do that with ESSER 2 and then again with ESSER 3.
So is that 4 million you say the difference between 15% and the 30-some percent?
No.
Or is that the whole fund balance?
The 4 million is the whole fund balance.
Okay, so we
Yes.
don't
That's all.
have 4 million
No.
to
No.
play with.
No, exactly.
Okay,
And
that's
so,
what I'm
No.
trying to
yeah,
get at.
Right.
How
and
much?
so potentially, I think that we could look at maybe 2 million. But again, the parts that we don't have accounted for right now, like the technology costs, like right now, the amount of the entire project is being thrown at construction costs.
Correct.
But that means that other things like furnishing and technology and all that,
We have
there's
an empty
no
building.
money for that now.
Right.
So there is some concern about jumping in, but that is a conversation that we've had, is that we could potentially have a couple million to support, but we still have 2 more projects to go. We still have a lot of other infrastructure needs. So to go to that right now doesn't feel like a good idea, because we still have other problems potentially coming. But we are continuing to try everything that we can to look at fund balance and is there anything we could pull to offset costs?
Okay, now one other question. Based on based on what we were going to be using sinking fund money for, is there any of that? And I know sinking fund is really particular about what you spend it on. But is there any fungibility with any of the sinking fund money for any of these? As you said, there are some technology and stuff like that, things that might conceivably fall under the purview of sinking fund eligible dollars.
Yeah, and we have already accounted for sinking fund dollars through 2024. So any potential dollars that are currently there, plus what's coming, have already been allocated to the bond projects themselves. So when he shares that this project was 1.7 million, that may include sinking fund dollars for that project. And we did already go through and figure out which things were sinking fund eligible and sort of have allocated those to which projects they'll fit in.
I figured you had, but I wanted to make sure that I understand.
Yeah.
And anybody that happens to be listening understands.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Where we are. Thank you.
We roll a predetermined list of sinking fund items into the bond work, mainly from a cost-effective standpoint. If we already got a concrete guy there and there's some concrete work to pour out front, that is the most affordable time to do it. And at the same time, the engineers were also able to roll that piece of the design into drawings they were already drawing, already designed. So no more plan review costs, there's no extra nonsense that needs to go with it. We felt it was the most affordable way to complete all of that work for the district. Also, I get on me.
I'm pretty sure that you guys have looked at everything and crossed all the Ts and dotted all the Is and looked under all the rocks outside to see whether or not there was any money under them. But just in the interest of making sure that everyone, not just around this
Agree.
table, but in the community understands
Full
that we're
transparency.
looking at every possible thing.
Yep. Thanks for those questions. Those are good ones.
So Brian's going to give our committee report from this morning. Early
So,
this morning.
yeah, so Nikki, Chris and I, Amy, Chris was on the phone, Mike Zielinski was on the phone, met this morning at 8 to kind of go through all this and kind of put our recommendation out there, what this committee, how the committee thinks we should move forward to present to you guys. And because we do need to make some decisions tonight, unfortunately. So we started out by looking at obviously the three that Chris talked about, the Betsy Valley remodeling and the locker room, weight room addition. We started out with Betsy Valley. My first question was, all right, is there something in Betsy Valley that, we could possibly build into a maintenance budget over the next 5 years? Is there stuff in here that we really don't need? Is there something that, potential future sinking fund dollars can go to fund, and after talking with Mike and Mike kind of going down through the list, like most of the stuff is fairly urgent, and he wasn't really super comfortable with, trying to kick some of the stuff down the road. Like, we need to do some of the stuff. We need to do some of the stuff now. There's some efficiencies that's going to come out of a few things by doing it now. That's going to save long-term money. We all knew the roof on every building in the district was something that has been a goal from day one. So that's hard to cut out. The HVAC was one of those things that, everything's being converted from steam to hot water. We need to do it now. There's some efficiencies there. Electrical, same thing. So, after talking with Mike for a while, we kind of thought that, we should probably leave Betsy Valley alone and try to get that approved tonight. So Chris can start making some phone calls and we can get that thing scheduled to go as soon as possible. And then conversation kind of switched towards the bus garage that we have put on hold. And the weight room addition and locker room. And out of those three projects, we all felt that the locker room is a definite need. It's a 70-year, need that we think we all anyone that's been in there realizes that that is something that we need to take care of, and we really didn't feel comfortable putting that on hold. And also timeline with that, we want to get that going quickly because that is going to cause major disruption in the school in the fall. If we wait on that and things, it's probably realistically, I mean, I'm in it every day. Realistically, it's probably going through timelines. Just are a thing of the past, I think. And we're trying to stay as tight as we can, but there's too many things that are out of our control right now. But we felt the sooner we get that going, the better. So we would really like to approve the locker room remodel inside tonight as well. We then then the conversation came up between, the transportation building and the weight room addition. There was a few areas of conversation that kind of led in different directions. One was what's impactful for students, because that's kind of my initial one was when we start having these conversations 6 years ago, and we start putting these lists together of things that, we all met. There was a group that met in that library once a month, and we all put hours and hours and hours of thought and hours of talking to people and pounding the pavement and years of trying to get this bond passed. Like, what are those core things that we really thought, and then 2 out of those, what are impactful for students? I think we all lean towards the bus garage being one of those things that we have one. And talking with Mary and Bo, like, when we really started hacking and whacking at what our initial design was, like, they're really not getting a whole lot more now than what they have over there. There's some stuff that's going to be newer, but we have cuts. I don't want to say bells and whistles, because there really wasn't even bells and whistles when we started cutting, but we started cutting, just hacking and slashing anywhere we thought we could to shrink and make smaller. And it's still, is now 600 and some thousand over budget, then, 900 and some thousand over budget. So it's still this number that, okay. So we thought, well, if we, that was on hold, which I think we could still say it is on hold, but we're now thinking that we should reallocate that money to help backfill some of these projects out of the first 4 that were over.
So we say it was on hold. That was the idea of, if we were able to rebundle it with the elementary school, we may see a savings.
Well, no, on hold was to maybe wait till the end and see if we have money left over after all of the projects have been bid out. If there's, and who knows? I mean, 2023, it could be a different construction climate, and we may save money. I mean, it's hard to say.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's hard to say. So we thought that was one project that, we have, and it works. And then along with that, we did talk about, well, maybe we could still do something at their current facility. I mean, there's a few things that probably could be done initially up front, to kind of get that a little more nicer. Give them some things that they had kind of asked for here, and make that place decent for a few years. And then retake those funds and reallocate them towards either the addition of the weight room, or just knowing in a month and a half that we have the biggest project, bond dollars coming up, that we have already spent hours and hours reducing the scope of that work before it went out to bid. That's why it's late. And we're still, it's still going to be pins and needles when that comes in. And we want to make sure that, if that comes in and we're $2-3 million over, like, I don't know what we start doing at that point. So we want to make sure we had this little kitty, on reserve in case that happens. So then we talked about, well, because we know that elementary school is kind of the flagship of this bond, like, do we want to maybe put the weight room addition temporarily on hold, and see just a month and a half and see what those numbers look like when the elementary numbers come in, and kind of see where we're at then. If we're good, then give the okay on the addition in a month and a half. There probably will be a special board meeting in the next couple of months. So, but it's just, we're going to have to do it, So I think that was our process. That was our thought.
So with the locker room renovation, rebuild, whatever we want to call it, the locker room versus the weight room, if we were, the savings and economy of labor, shared labor or whatnot, would it be any different bundling that if we had the money with the elementary school versus bundling it with the locker room? Is there any assumed savings that it would be a greater savings one way or the other?
No,
I doubt it.
It wouldn't. It would even be worse. And it's one of the things that we've experienced in the rebidding process. We had a district kind of test drive that. It was over budget by several $1 million. So they just scrapped it. They redesigned a little bit and put it right back out for bids. Problem with what happened is that everybody saw the bids. So every low bidder went up to the second or third bidder. And then all the high bidders who weren't necessarily going to get jobs, didn't participate at all. And then 20% of the bid divisions had 0 bidders. So when you have 4 or 5 bid divisions that don't come to the table, so we can't make the project so big in February in a project that we want to start 2.5 months later, that there's only 1 or 2 people that are going to be able to handle that. They're going to come up from Lansing, Grand Rapids, Detroit, Ohio, and that costs the district more. The local folks, the local excavator that can handle the weight room, per se, is by far the best option and is the most affordable for the district.
Okay.
So, we tried to bundle them in ways that made the most sense from a financing standpoint and from a construction standpoint. I take one contractor that's got 10 guys and put them on 4 jobs. Well, you still only got 10 guys.
Right.
If I put those same 10 guys on one project, well, there's a much better chance that they're going to meet our timeline. It's more work for Volgas because we're dealing with 5 different general trades, 5 different masons. However, that hopefully keeps every project on track and on time as much as that realistically is right now. I will admit the schedule is a bit of a struggle. So we did look at the combination, and I know that conversation has come up before, but I don't think the district would benefit.
Thank you.
So along with that, I guess to touch back on the weight room addition, if that needs to take a permanent pause as well, which we're really hoping that doesn't. We do have kind of a plan B that we had talked about. I don't even know if it made to this level, but there was some discussion in the core team in Building and Grounds Committee meetings of maybe possibly doing an internal remodel of some spaces to move because we all agree, like it was unanimous on the core team that the weight room has to come off the balcony. It's not, I mean, it's not the spot for it. So we know it needs to go somewhere, whether it goes out or it comes in. We initially looked at some estimated cost early on about doing a remodel in the choir room, concessions room, and moving it maybe in there and relocating choir. And the design of that at the time got a little, not necessarily carried away, but it was really involved. And at the time, the cost savings wasn't really there from the initial estimated cost. So we talked today a little bit about maybe scaling that, the I don't know how to say it, the intensity or the depth, which
Magnitude.
of what the magnitude of what they had designed early on for that probably isn't necessarily what we need anymore. I mean, it was a disastrous tearing out just to put back, literally. So that maybe, I mean, it was literally we're tearing out concrete to pour concrete type of a thing, So there may be some ways to still get that need taken care of in the building if we need to. I think we're going to know more in a month and a half. And then we still have $6 million in phase 2 remodeling in this school that we have to worry about as well, which hopefully, at that point, with the big one out of the way, you know, there may be some breathing room. We'll probably have a little better handle on contingency money. And we'll probably have a little bit better handle on sinking or on general fund dollars, you know, to keep that phase 2 remodel kind of on track. But I mean, we've cut out of that. I mean, we have.
So is this a both and question?
What's that?
So are we coming, we know we have to do something.
We have to do something.
So the question is, do we put the bus garage on hold? That's one option. Put the weight room on hold, that's another option, or put them both. Is that correct? Those are the three things we're looking at?
Well, we've already put the transportation on hold because that was out a long time ago. So we held on
But
that.
there's
So,
perma hold.
well, yeah, what we're saying now is it's still on hold, but
We need to
we're
allocate.
reallocating those dollars for something else.
Right.
I think the weight room, we're looking at putting on a hold until we have numbers for the new elementary, and then we'll know. So that, I mean, it's a, you know, a month and a half is a big deal, you know, in the construction world right now, but we've,
Go ahead and lock
we just, Betsy Valley and the locker rooms today, we thought was, we needed to get going on those. Those are going to impact kids in the building,
Every day.
you know, in you know, the locker room.
You gotta get the kids to the building also, though.
Well, I hear you, and they are, they
know,
are,
I know. I know.
they are.
It's,
And those two particular projects, we need to be out of at the end of the
no, I
month.
get it. I get it.
Yeah.
Where the weight room addition, I mean, in all reality, would have gotten done and done right, whether that was September or November, we could still work with students. So,
Correct.
Fundamentally, I'm really uncomfortable with going forward with a weight room addition and putting the transportation on hold. And here's my logic. Yes, you're right. We do currently have a transportation building. I don't know if anybody's been in that building. I'm not sure that it's an improvement over the building next door to it. I mean, it's in rough shape, and it has been for as long as I've been here. So 20 odd years, it has been in really rough shape. It is badly needed replacing all along. And fundamentally, Jason's right. Transportation impacts more students than, other than food service and instruction, pretty much anything else as a school district. I mean, because most of the kids that we get to school come by way of our buses. And we need to have the best possible facility for keeping those buses up and keeping them and having a facility that our drivers and transportation department feel comfortable using and feel like it's giving the best possible product to those kids. It's not just a question of buying new buses every year. It's also a question of keeping them up and keeping the staffing high. So I really worry about putting transportation too far at the back.
So you could address what Mary had said about this.
Sure.
I mean, it's,
Yeah.
she,
So I did talk to Mary and Bo multiple times about this. And as every iteration that we had where we had to make a change or make a cut because of the cost, they kept coming to me saying, why are we even doing this? Because we're not going to get something bigger, better, different. We're really getting basically what we already have. Why are you spending millions of dollars on this when we already have it? And so she was the one that kind of kept bringing it back to me, and Bo too, saying, this doesn't really make a lot of sense to spend this kind of money when we're not really going to get what we wanted in the beginning. They were going to lose the wash bay. Everything was getting shrunk down. The size was just not really going to meet their needs. And so they were the ones that kind of made us pause a little bit and go, maybe you're right. Maybe we shouldn't be forcing this. If you have a facility right now, we may need to do some upgrades there.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, why are we rebuilding something that is essentially the same?
Just newer.
Yeah, just newer. And that's what I kept telling her. I'm like, but you're getting a newer building. It's much newer. It's going to be nicer. And she's like, but it's not really better. And so that was helpful, I think, for us as a team to hear that and realize, yep, if we're going to put these dollars towards the best possible use for kids, it doesn't make sense to recreate something that we already have. So that's why I reached out to Troon today to find out, because we do still have 2 more bond series. I think one is 500,000 and one is 1.5 million. Those could be rolled together and become one bond series together. And we could potentially look at our sinking fund dollars that we have down the road. And if there's any contingencies left from the projects, then we could potentially fund the project. I think it was 2.3 million is what the full bus garage is coming back at. That is something that could be doable. We could potentially do that. So we do have some options down the road, but looking at the projects that we have currently, looking at what we know is going to impact kids and what we need to pull out to actually move forward, it was making some sense for us to say, maybe we need to just stop with the bus garage right now and fund these other spaces and wait until the end and see what we have.
Having Marion Bo's input's helpful.
Yeah. Really, I don't know if I necessarily would have pushed to look at that harder if it wasn't for them pushing so hard saying this doesn't make sense.
Thank you for that feedback.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and they've been saying for, I'm guessing about 6 months now. This is something they've been saying to us.
It does, I mean, what they're saying makes sense. I mean, if they're not gonna get the things that would improve
Mhm.
their work, other than aesthetics,
And Mike, we talked to Mike today about the structure of the
Mhm.
building and you know, yes, there are some things that need to be done in there, you know, but it's doable stuff that, you know, we can take care of and not break the bank and make it, you know, yeah, we could paint it. We could, you know, we could do some things. We could probably remodel a couple bathrooms. We could, you know, help with some things in there. The other thing is, you know, we talked about today that space is probably going to be ours forever. I mean, that's the reality of where we're at with that building down there in that space
you mean the old bus garage?
where the bus
Yeah.
garage is at currently. That will be ours forever.
Listen, I mean, it could be a brownfield situation. Possible. Well, I mean, through the county, I mean, it could be, there are
I
ways
think that
to
it'll
deal with it.
probably
It'll
just
probably
stay as
be
the
ours
school's
forever.
property.
So
There are
that's
other
something that
There are.
that's something that, you know, we kind of looked at too, you know. So
Is that a separate parcel from the high school? Old high school, the Benzonia High School?
It is
Mhm.
separated, yeah.
What is the property on Bay Point Road that Bethany Central owns?
I believe that is the one we uncovered that is DTE owned, right? It's out near Honor, out by the water. Is
It's
that the one
on,
you're talking
it's
about?
on Platte Lake,
Yeah.
South
Mhm.
Shore of Platte Lake.
Yeah, and I think it's.
it's on the lake.
Well,
It's across the road from the
close.
lake.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
not on the lake, it's across the road from the
It's
lake.
kind of in a marshy type area. I think it's 1 acre.
Close to
And
it, yeah.
currently there's an easement on there for DTE, I believe. They have an easement.
Underground, gas, probably.
I believe so.
Gotcha.
That one is the newer one that I think Dave Mazinski worked on that project. And that one, he was very smart about how that was handled, stating that it is only an easement. It doesn't belong to them. If they, for any reason, ever want to change that, it goes back to the school's property. It will, like, the school has final discretion on what's used there.
Just curious, because there's a value on that property. I mean, and
Oh,
just
I
wasn't-
see, as a potential sale.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
And the easement doesn't change the value of the property. I mean, the fact that there exists an easement on there, it's still our property no matter what.
Correct.
So
That one was written differently than the other one that we had, the gas easement for DTE that was done in 1966 was not written the same way as this new one was, which is
Yeah.
the way that all of them moving forward used to be written.
right.
But that is a thought too,
Something to look at.
that we could look at potential sale of property.
And it wasn't willed to us.
I guess we'd have to double check on how it was donated, if it has a reverter clause.
I couldn't find anything about it. The last thing I found was from '89. and didn't really say much, but
No.
it's worth probably
Maybe, Lorraine, were you here? then?
500-600 grand.
Remember?
I mean, it's worth.
We've
it's
got
worth
some
a good
history,
bu-
Lauren,
a
maybe
good-
you
a good
remember.
chunk of change.
Because that's the issue, right, Lori? If it's willed to us, then it has to go back to the state.
It
Isn't-
depends on how it was
It
acquired
was-
by the school.
Okay.
If it came from the state,
No, it came from
If-
a.
if
I
it
think it
came
was
from the
donated.
state,
Uh-huh.
then it has to be used for school purposes.
Absolutely.
And that's what we ran into in Copeland
Yeah,
with Twisted Trails when they
Yeah.
wanted to buy.
so I remember.
If, however, it was something that the school purchased, or if it was donated by an individual,
I think it was a land conservancy thing.
then we can probably safely convey it, sell it,
Okay.
if we choose to do so.
Okay.
And
I can look into that.
I would assume, knowing a lot of that area around there, that it's not really a prime.
You know, it's not terrible.
Well, I know my in-laws live right next door to it, and he had to. I mean, he was able to put live on the lake, and he was able to put a very, very small garage right off of Bay Point Road,
Right.
because everything behind it was swamp, and
Huh.
they wouldn't. DEQ at the time, Eagle now, would not permit anything
Right.
past. I mean, his garage is like on the road, and he only had like 22.4, feet to build on.
Yeah.
So
Well, there is
up
a lot,
that
there's
way
a lot of
is-
wetland over there. It's just that.
I mean, it would maybe improve someone across the lake to give them a little more, but I mean, it's not like,
that's where its value is probably
Neighbor, yeah.
logistically, is somebody who wants to acquire it to add to their existing.
There is a
parcel.
value.
possibly.
There is a value connected to it in Benzonia Township's database which is why
Mhm.
I thought about it, but which is a higher number than I thought it would be.
Mhm.
So I don't know. We'll have to check it out.
Okay, I can definitely look into that.
So to summarize, our recommendation is to put hold on transportation right now, to move forward with Betsy Valley tonight, to slightly put on hold the weight room, and to move forward with the locker room. I have all that.
And reallocate.
And reallocate
bus
the
garage.
funds from the transportation to the other projects, overages.
I concur.
Am I summarizing it?
That sounds.
I'm trying.
And I think the good thing about that too is most of the trades that are in here for the locker room were the trades that had low bid on the addition as well. So we've already kind of locked them up for the time
Mhm.
being. So that, I don't
They
think
still
it's,
might be working while we're.
yeah.
Well, we're thinking.
I mean,
Obviously, the low bidders, regardless of how their breakout worked, it's just the low bid totals will be terrible.
yeah. So they're going to get locked in to be here in April or whatever we decide to start. Hopefully that won't get ugly when we.
What is the earliest timeline we can start on that once awarded?
Well, it depends what we're talking about. An addition is as soon as Mother Nature lets us. And then obviously if it's inside the school, we'll likely have to wait until after school gets out. There are some various specified things that also need to happen, whether it's phase 1 or phase 2, regardless of its phase, except for the cafeteria. I'd like to get as much done as the schedule allows. That usually happens during spring break, just because it works out best. There's air monitoring. We want a little gap between the weekends, just aren't enough. Keeps it affordable. We got to do it ahead of summer because, as you can imagine, every school that needs a pavement is happening during the summer. So the fact that spring break fluctuates kind of within about 3 weeks between March and April, hopefully gives us a window to get somebody in here to get that work done. So we are also trying to work on that in the background to make sure that that gets out of the way. And those are budgetary items that, I know we're hoping that come in under budget. I know like cafeteria ceiling, we put what we thought was a big number in a year ago. I'm hoping it works to our favor. Sure would like a win or two in a row, would be nice.
Any
Well,
questions?
thank you very much to the core team because I know you guys have put in a lot of extra hours, extra meetings. And these are really crummy decisions. I mean, rallied and, you know, put so much time and energy, so many people did, into getting this bond to pass. And it's just a terrible spot to be in, to not be able to stretch our dollars to touch everything that we want it to. But I appreciate you guys looking at the big picture and the main goal of obviously the new elementary and the things that are needs and not wants. So thank you.
I would say your team is really good about already trying to be super conservative and making those decisions now so that we don't have to go back and keep doing value engineering. So they've been great.
You know, this challenge is in every school district that's working with bond or sinking fund dollars right now. And I will tell you that all the districts that, you know, Wolgas is involved in, you guys are rock stars when it comes to sitting down and coming up with solutions. You know, nobody's pointing the finger, nobody's blaming anybody, everybody just goes, okay, let's look at this realistically, what can we do about it? This group has done a heck of a job in all of these challenges we face. So I commend all you guys. It's been a pleasure, even though it's been very, very difficult.
I picture, there was that meme of like Melissa McCarthy going around looking for Christmas gifts, like on the ships out in the, you know, I picture these guys like, okay, where's our money? We're going to find it and we're going to get this done.
Something like that. While you're handing Amber the microphone, can I ask a question on the bright light? How much is replacement of bulbs if we need to replace them? Sorry, Brian, I'm stealing your question.
We have it came with one set of replacements, and then we did a 3-year contract with them for service maintenance, which includes bulbs. So we essentially don't have to pay for bulbs for 3 years. I would have to double check the cost. I want to say it was somewhere in the neighborhood of $3,000,
3,000?
Yeah.
You hear that?
but I got to double check that.
We let Chris go. Everyone goes with Chris.
Yeah.
We're good with
Yeah,
Chris.
you drive back to Alpena tonight? That'll Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris, thank you.
so much.
Thank you guys very much.
Amy will give you a
Appreciate you,
shout
Chris.
probably afterwards, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I can give you a call.
Was that in the initial contract?
Okay.
Or yet tonight.
Might keep you awake. Bug railing.
Thank you so much. Drive safe.
Brian, did you hear that?
Huh?
$3,000 for our contract with Bright Light
I got to double check that.
for service.
I don't want to lie about it, but
I think it was in that initial
And that's changing the bulbs.
contract.
Thanks for sticking with us, Amber.
Hi, Amber.
Yeah, good night. Good thing we had a
It's
snow
okay.
today. No, good evening, everybody. As I prepared the early childhood update, and just talked to my staff about what the important things that they would want the board and the community to know about, this fall was really hard. Staffing issues plagued us. Just getting enough credentialed people in places that we needed them was really difficult. And we started the year an entire classroom staff short. But the incredible thing about that is the staff stepped up. We had Katie Johnson, our special education teacher, step into a classroom. I took on the special education. We had teachers going from Lake Ann to Crystal Lake and back. So we really, the group of educators that we have in early childhood now are incredible. And they are doing amazing things. As Stephanie said, they are not only working long days, making sure that before and after care is open and going, but also doing just incredible instruction, caring for and loving on kids, many of which have only been alive during a pandemic, which is kind of an incredible thing to think about. So definitely have to recognize we have 14 early childhood staff members, and that puts us at fully staffed, which I don't know that since I've been here, I've been able to say that. So that's a pretty incredible thing we're at. We have 3 classrooms at Lake Ann still and 2 at Crystal Lake. We have a pretty good wait list at Crystal Lake. Lake Ann has a couple of openings. So I'll be trying to get those full in the next couple of weeks. We were awarded, we normally have 30 GSRP slots. We were awarded 6 more, which is a substantial amount of slots that we have for our GSRP, which is awesome. We still have the 14 Strong Beginnings with that pilot grant, and that's going great. We just hired a lead teacher for that, and she started after winter break, so we're really happy to have Melinda.
Stephanie shared that we have our fall data, which is really now old data. We're coming up on our next checkpoint, but just really celebrating that we decided we'd really look at social emotional development in kids. Like I say, the pandemic has been especially hard on our littlest people who haven't really been around to know normal. So the teachers really focused on that, and to have 65 kids meeting or exceeding in social emotional in November is incredible. So I just showed you the old data, which would be 43% and 38% in the preceding year. So that was just awesome to share. Most of the early childhood staff is on compliance plan. So we get them in, we participate with the Teach Scholarship so they can get their schooling for free. And so just really celebrating that they are working full-time, going to school full-time, and doing amazing things in our community. So they're all doing amazing. All of them made the Dean's List. So just little stuff to celebrate.
Wow.
We're doing full inclusion preschool. All of our children, special education, general education, are all in the classroom together. We are moving mountains for these kids and meeting regularly to make sure that we are accommodating them and modifying what we're doing to best meet their needs. So that's also just a really amazing thing. I already mentioned the GSRP slots. We also received 2 grants. They're Child Care Relief Fund grants. That was about $47,000 for Crystal Lake and about $83,000 for Lake Ann. Part of that is bonuses for all of the staff. And the rest is all to just kind of make up for any lost revenue due to lower class sizes the last couple of years. And then I just included in your packet just some fun pictures because early childhood, that's what it's all about. And then I just included a staff survey so that you could know more about who's teaching the Littlest Huskies. And I just thought that was kind of neat to read. Do you have any questions for me?
Oh, your staff members will sub?
Yes.
Just like that.
All except for Katie Johnston,
Oh,
our special education teacher.
With the GSRP and the Healthy
Strong Beginnings.
Strong Beginnings.
Are they all in separate classrooms, or are all these kids all together, just like all 2-year-olds, all 3-year-olds, et cetera?
No, so our Strong Beginnings is all just 3-year-olds because that is a pilot grant, so we have to have that grant.
So they have one teacher, those kids?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And we are actually busing kids from Lake Ann to Crystal Lake so that we can get as many 3-year-olds free preschool as we possibly can.
Okay.
And then our GSRP slots are just kind of all mixed in with different funding sources.
Okay.
I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Amber. I don't know if people realize just how amazing she is. She's essentially an administrator of an entire elementary building that's broken up between Lake Ann, Crystal Lake, and Frankfurt. And all of her teachers, like she just said, are on compliance plans, which means that none of them are actual certified teachers yet. So on top of all of the work that she's doing, she is training teachers, and they are doing some pretty amazing, miraculous things with helping our youngest kids be ready to be social beings in this really crazy world that we live in right now. But on top of all of that, she's also out there writing grants, securing over $100,000 for the district. And on top of all of that, she and her team are still supporting the whole district in how we work with kids, building relationships, talking about CPI, like really just looking at best practice, and also making sure that everybody understands how important inclusion is and that all kids should be learning from each other in one environment. So even though they are the smallest and the youngest, they are really the ones leading the way and sort of giving the rest of the district the big picture of how do we support students and their needs? How do we have monthly meetings to look at data and what's best practice for kids, and just growing her staff in such an amazing way. I mean, we are really blessed to have her. And I don't know that she gets enough accolades or enough of her praises being sung, but she's pretty amazing and we're lucky to have you.
Very amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amber.
Thank you.
It's really good.
You too.
Generator proposal and bid update.
Sure, I'll make this quick. We wanted to purchase generators. Mike and I started having this conversation over the summer after some of the issues we ran into last year with power outages. And we were trying to secure the 3 quotes, which is really impossible in this time, much like you've heard from all the other projects. People just don't have the supply. The prices are changing constantly. We had 2 bids come in, one of them from Generac, which is right here in Honor. And I believe it's somewhere in the neighborhood of about 80,000, which would get us a generator large enough here to operate the office, phone lines, internet, and maybe potentially some fridge situations, and then a smaller generator for Betsy Valley, a smaller generator for Lake Ann, and then the new elementary is going to already have a generator part of that bid package. But essentially that would keep phone lines up. That's the big thing. We want to have access to phones. And if the high school goes down, it takes down the internet and phone systems for every other building. So it's really important that we get,
A lot more sense.
yes. Yeah, it's not so much about food. I have had conversations with Consumers Energy about their grid system and trying to figure out if there's anything they can do.
Everybody has.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I did actually,
too.
Jack O'Malley put me in touch with somebody that's sort of a big wig there. And then he didn't realize, he thought I was just complaining because our food went bad. I'm like, I could care less about the food.
Yeah.
It's the safety and communication. And he didn't realize that. So he said he was going to elevate that up the list. And then we also are going to be working with somebody from Consumers to look at our projects and see if there's any rebates or money savings that we can get back with all the upgrades we're doing.
We've been the representative now for
Well,
this
with the
area.
Redistricting.
Yes, we will. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's okay. I think I can still-
Unfortunately.
I still got some connections.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You do know Amber's husband is a engineer for Consumers, right?
Oh, well,
Not
he's not the,
Not this Amber, that Amber.
oh. okay,
Amber
gotcha.
Wilson.
Gotcha. I was like, that's not the name they gave me.
No,
Nope.
but Blake is an engineer. So
Yeah.
maybe you can.
Yes, probably. So any questions about that? Right now, it's about a year to 18 months out on generators.
Yeah.
So as much as we want to move forward, I'm hoping we'll be able to just bring you with the 2 quotes that we have and let you guys decide, but we're not going to get a 3rd quote at this point.
Do we have any generators in place in the district right now?
We do not. And that is a problem.
Very good.
Unfortunately.
Okay,
Okay, yep, that's
keep
it.
on rolling.
All right, the next thing is the letter of agreement. This came up last minute after the board packet was sent out, but essentially, when the secretary's group negotiated, not anybody, I guess there was one that was actually taking medical benefits. And so at that time, when the contract was agreed upon, we agreed to grandfather that person in with full medical benefits, and then anybody else would just get up to $6,000, I think, for single payer insurance coverage. Unfortunately, we now have a new employee that started this year after the contract was settled, and they need full family benefits. And to continue at the rate that they were making, they would not get a paycheck. That their entire paycheck would go to insurance costs because insurance costs have skyrocketed as well. So I talked to Justin and we offered up the letter of agreement saying that we would pay $14,000 toward full family for anyone new that wants to take insurance starting now. That way we wouldn't impact what we had already negotiated with the other part of the contract. And so I'm just waiting to hear back from Joe Washington and Lara Bishop about their agreement with us. Any questions about that? Then next on here, we just had resignations. Madison Lutzke for volleyball, and then Lisa Dude did put in as of Friday that she would be leaving her position in the high school math department on the 21st of this month. So we do have an interview scheduled tomorrow for a math teacher. We don't have somebody that has those qualifications yet, but we're going to check to see if the person that would be interviewing would take the AP calculus exam and get certified so that they could be qualified to teach that. Otherwise, we may have to do some creative scheduling for the time being.
So what happens to those students that have the AP courses?
So they would continue to take those courses right now. We could get a substitute permit to cover that person to teach the class for the remaining part of the year or until we're able to put in
Is
the
that
highly
something that Hammer
certified.
could do, being that he was the old AP teacher?
Potentially, although I would say we've discussed that. I don't know about feasibility wise, given how busy his plate is already and taking him away from that 2 hours a day. I'm not sure the realistic implications of that.
Do we
So
have 2 sections of AP Calc?
we have AP Calc and Pre-Calc. Thank you. Yeah. So I think that the person could teach Pre-Calc. It would be the AP Calc.
Do-
That,
Dude is pre-calc
correct.
or AP calc.
Correct. Yes. And she did say that she would stay on until we can find a replacement. So that is helpful to know.
Oh, for that specific class.
Yes. Yeah. So we're looking at some options, but we do have an interview for that. And we do have another interview scheduled for Friday for the counseling position for the Benzie Academy. So I'll keep you posted on how those go.
Okay. Retirements?
Yep, and then Dan Long was scheduled to retire. His last date was supposed to be the 21st. But he has asked to stay on until February 1 because the State Office of Retirement only allows you to retire, I guess, at the beginning of the month, not midway through the month. So he's willing to stay on, and I'm sure we can find something for him to do for the next 2 weeks.
Okay. Board of Education Committee reports, building and grounds. I think we basically gave our report.
Yeah,
So.
the only update that I shared with you guys was that DTE has now approved the road being on the school's property and that we can go as close as 25 feet. So that original drawing kind of meandered around. They would allow us to put it straight back, so the road would be straight. It would go back to where the 2 driveways would be, the school parking lot and then the bus loop. And then they would pave over to Henry. So the road commission is moving forward. I do need to talk to you, Lori, about if you can help me research who can grant the easement and if it is the school or if we would have to give it back to the Land Conservancy to grant that access.
As long as the school, as long as the school is the vested owner of the property, we can grant the easement.
And that's what I need to determine because the 1966 easement that never was completed said that it had to go back to the Land Conservancy for approval. And it looks like DTE never did that. So we also need to make sure that they actually own that 1 acre parcel.
I know where you can hire a title examiner if you want.
I don't
Okay.
think they do.
Yeah.
It's
So-
just an easement.
I would like to give you a call in the next couple of days and see if we can figure out. No,
I have
I
rec-
forgot you're gonna be gone.
I
I'm
have-
in the Dominican Republic
That's
until
right.
next weekend.
Oh,
I have records.
Lori.
Okay. All right.
But
So,
next week you could call me and I'd be happy to do it.
all right, next week then. I'll let you have the week off.
You have fun.
All right, so that was the biggest thing that came out of it. We are finally moving that forward. And now we'll just work with the road commission to grant an easement. And at this point, it sounds like they would be helping fund the cost of that because that would be a county road.
About the tree clearing,
The tree clearing is happening currently.
right, but if we straighten that out now, that's gonna,
We may need to do that, yeah. So I'm hoping that we'll have an answer soon, that DTE will accept that straightened version. And then we can let the harvesters know so that they can take those trees.
Is finance committee not listed because we did the audit?
I am not sure why that didn't get on there, but I did add it at the bottom after Benzie Academy, so you can give the treasurer's update. All right, OSHA, the Supreme Court was listening to people giving their side of the story on Friday. They have not ruled as of earlier today. I don't know if anything happened after 5, but at this point, we are just holding until we get further guidance. Once it's decided if it goes forward, you guys already did grant the ability for us to just put into play. And I would work with the union reps to secure a list of vaccination status from each employee. And then if they are not vaccinated, then they would be doing the weekly testing on Mondays. So that's still the plan if that moves forward. And And next.
What was the
here.
date on that we'll know if that moves forward? Sorry.
I don't know when the date is. They've been hearing, people's input, Friday and today. I
Okay.
thought they were gonna have, I would hope maybe sometime this week,
Okay.
but nothing yet. February 8th is when they said that it would be officially put into play and that they would start, giving citations if people were not in compliance.
Okay. I know we're struggling to get enough tests already, so.
Yeah, I placed an order in December and still haven't received them. I got an email today saying that we received 840. I asked for shipment, notification, verification, and he said
Yeah.
they went to whichever building you said. I'm like, no, not here. So,
They're on the FedEx
Yeah.
truck.
Yeah. so we had enough to test athletes, but we're gonna be out.
Right, and then if we had staff on top of that.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Educational Foundation, do you have an update?
Just have a meeting.
Okay, liaison and curriculum, Lori, do you have an update? Okay. Negotiations, any updates on that?
No, only that we do have 3 to negotiate, and I believe custodians have had a couple of meetings, and I'm just waiting for them to come to the table to initiate.
Okay. Benzie Academy. Do we have an update?
Nothing new
Nothing.
except for the counseling position.
Okay. And Finance Committee, do we have an update?
I have an email from Justin, and I have a couple questions. He just said the auditor would be presenting, as she did, currently working on current year reconciliations, going month at a time until we are caught up. So that's for the current school year?
Correct.
Okay, so going back to like any staff who put in for reimbursements and stuff like that.
Those
That
are happening. It's
Okay.
the reconciliations where they actually have to go through the bank and reconcile all of the transactions that happened that month.
Okay,
So they are paying out currently
okay.
anybody that has put in for reimbursement, things like that. Bills are still getting paid. It's
Okay.
that monthly
Going back and-
reconciliation.
Okay.
Yeah.
The new program process for the CBO for paying out refs and stuff, so using the arbiter pay.
Mhm.
Which I'm happy to see that finally happening because I was starting to get calls from officials that were saying they were no longer going to be officiating at Benzie, so it's very important.
I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of other districts use this system.
Yeah.
Yes, and we were one of the last ones, and they were going to start boycotting us. And I know this has been this will take a lot of stress off of Eli. So I think
Oh, good.
That's
I'm
awesome.
glad to see this happen.
I'm assuming it's just a monthly fee that we use to have this program sort of thing
I think it's a transaction fee.
Okay. for each direct deposit we
Yeah.
do or whatever.
I was just reading to see if it said, we set up a holding account with Arbiter Pay. We have to fund this account ahead of time. Rather than waiting for a check, he can set up payments directly to officials. It also takes care of issuing 1099s to every official who needs it.
That's
that's
nice.
big.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That was a big holdup actually with why officials weren't getting paid. It's because they didn't have 1099s on file.
Mm.
And trying to get those from people was kind of a nightmare.
And Justin's really good about staying on you to get that stuff turned
He
in.
is.
Yes, yes.
It said he worked with Mr. Alderman to submit an application for a grant for the 99H robotics. Waiting to find out if that will be approved. Submitted a direct application with FEMA for emergency response protective measure funding. Waiting to find out if that would come through for a grant total of $310,493.50. Food service was approved for their National School Lunch Program Equipment Assistance Grant. The amount requested and approved will help secure the following items for Betsy Valley: the stainless steel top work table, hot plate countertop electric with 4 round plate elements. Early childhood received 2 additional grants, which Amber talked about. Continuing to work with Lauren Lightfoot, who joined the office, has been a great addition, and having an intern. Intern is, did I hear you say Lisa?
Lisa Purchase.
Okay, that's awesome.
So is she going to school?
She is. Got to get her finance degree.
Is
Okay,
Chartwell's asking her to do that, or?
She was doing that on her own.
Yeah, good for her.
that was it.
Okay.
Any questions? Call Justin.
Any other committee reports? Okay. Audience participation. Rain.
Way to stick it out, Lorraine.
I'm gonna take this off so
Thank
that
you.
I can be heard. Lorraine Nordbeck, 5376 Benzie Highway. After sitting through this meeting, I know that you have a lot on your plate, but I feel that I needed to come and share this with the board tonight. So I come tonight to share my disappointment. The year is 2022, and you would think that girls and boys sports would get the same respect and importance. This is not true. Does the Board of Education know how the new varsity girls basketball coach was hired? I bet the majority of you have no idea how the varsity coach was hired. Jeff Nordbeck, current girls JV coach and interim girls varsity coach, and Mark Pajeski, past girls varsity coach and assistant during this time, were handling the departure of Sarah Ross. Jeff and Mark, along with the help of many parents, had things under control so the school could do the due process of hiring a new varsity girls coach. Why was a hasty decision made and the normal process of hiring a girls varsity coach was not followed? A process that would include written applications, a committee to review and interview, and finally the recommendation to a candidate to hire. This was the procedure followed twice over the past several years for the boys varsity basketball coach. There are currently 2 varsity coaching positions open. I sure hope Benzie Central follows proper hiring procedures with these openings.
Thanks, Lori.
I can speak to that if you would like. The factors in this one were a little bit different than most when we know in advance, like you said, the other 2 that are open are positions that we have lots of time to work on. This one was a middle of the season or 2 weeks into the season departure, which did change the timeline, which is different than what we normally do because of that timing. So there were people that were currently in it that Eli did talk to, check to see if they were interested. And then there was one person that had expressed interest, not in a formal way, but just had sent some interest. And then Eli was also looking because the person that had expressed interest was already a current coach. So there were some concerns about some of the people robbing Peter to pay Paul kind of situation. So it is definitely different than it's been handled before because of the timing of it. But I wanted to at least share that with you.
So is this a 1-year contract then? Like all of our coaching positions?
Yes, correct.
Okay, moving on to action topics. We don't have any administrative appointments. Oh, did I? What did I miss?
Return.
I didn't see that. I'm sorry.
The return to
Okay.
Benzie plan. This, I had spoken to you all about the change that the health department made last week. I believe it was on Monday, that they changed to the 5-day quarantine period for anybody that is COVID positive or close contact. So the new guidance would be that you would have to be out for 5 days. If you were a close contact, you can test on day 5 and come back day 6 through 10. You would still be required to mask. If you were the positive person, then you would do the same protocol. If you are an athlete, though, this is where it gets a little confusing. So if you're an athlete and you are out for 5 days and you are positive, if you come back on day 6 and you test and you're positive, you would have to wear a mask days 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. After day 10, then you move into that 90-day period where you wouldn't have to test any longer. But in the past, you had to be out for 10 days. And so when you came back, you were able to be unmasked because you were out of your period. So that's the little bit confusing part right now for athletes. So essentially, if a family doesn't want their child a mask, then they would just serve out their full 10 days, or they would wear a mask while practicing and participating in a sport.
But even if they test positive, they can return for those remaining of the 10 days,
They
as
would
long
just-
as they're masked.
As long as they're masked, they would not be
Gotcha.
allowed to be unmasked.
Okay.
And then anybody that has been positive in the last 90 days are being counted as natural immunity. So those people no longer have to test on a weekly basis.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that part.
Yeah.
You're right. No one will have to test people.
Yeah.
Well,
I got herd immunity.
fingers crossed. So that essentially is the change. So if you guys approve that this evening, that will just be added to the guidance that's online. And there is a graphic. It's pretty
I
helpful.
like that.
It's a better
Yeah.
graphic than it was.
Yeah.
actually.
The other change that's different now than what it was previously is that if you have a home positive in your home, you have to automatically stay home even if you're vaccinated. And unless you've been vaccinated and boosted in the last 6 months, you would fall under that guidance. I know. Please don't laugh. This is my world every day.
Wait, what?
So if you have been vaccinated, which means you've had 2 shots
Uh-huh.
and you've had a booster
Uh-huh.
in the last 6 months,
Mm-hmm.
if your child or someone in your home is positive, you can continue to go to work and school.
Okay.
If you have only had your 2 shots and that was more than 6 months ago and you have not been boosted, you now are treated just like anybody unvaccinated. You stay home for the 5 days and then you can go back on day 6.
Sit around just to keep their importance up and figure out their most.
Okay, but so
ways
then the
to
quarantining,
Adjust things. I mean, that's,
is it the 5 days?
Yes.
have
And
to-
it gets a little complicated too about like if you are not
Over time,
symptomatic,
I have to keep it.
day 0 is the day you test, and then the next day starts day 1, 2, 3. If you've had symptoms, then it goes from the day of symptoms.
And the positive test has to be a PCR test. I'm assuming it can't be just an
No.
up the nose test.
It can be just the up the nose test. A lot of times they're really far behind right now, so they are not even testing people. If you are in a household with somebody that's been tested positive, then they automatically call your family members positive if they have symptoms.
Oh, good Lord.
And I'm sure they report that way too,
Yeah.
correct?
Well, sure.
Just wanted to make sure.
Any other?
Are we
We
allowed
haven't
to,
taken a test, but we're reporting a positive.
are we allowed to ask if they're vaccinated on the?
They do ask if.
Are we allowed to as
Oh,
a school?
we have asked if they tell us, great. If they don't, then they're treated like the unvaccinated if they refuse to answer.
Honestly,
At
it's
least
not our
that's how the
place
health
to ask
department has been handling it.
It's not our place to ask them. It's not.
Wow.
Business of their own.
Yes and no, because we have to ask vaccinations for school.
Right.
So, Lori,
It's not a
I
vaccination.
just think communication is huge, because girls didn't come to basketball practice because they didn't think they could. And we have a girls' basketball game tomorrow night. We actually had coaches calling girls to see where they were at, because Eli said that they could be here, but 2 girls says, no, I can't come back to school till tomorrow. So the communication, I mean, we could forfeit a conference game tomorrow night. I know communication is tough, but if Eli's gotta come to school, but the girls think they can't come to school, we have 13 girls to go to Leland tomorrow for 2 games.
We have to, we do share a spreadsheet with the health department so that they can accurately update it. I know this past week there was some confusion because lots of people were still operating under 10-day, and then they changed the 5-day. The issue is the masking. Some of those families didn't want their child to be masked while playing basketball, so they're serving out the full 10 days. So I think that's where the confusion came in for some of those girls.
No, there's only one game tomorrow too. That just got changed as well.
Yeah,
Due to
but-
COVID-
Varsity?
Just a varsity game. Due to COVID concerns at Leland, there will be no JV game.
Oh.
So there is just a varsity.
okay.
That's it for me.
Now go to action topics.
So there's no administrative report or appointments. First one on is approval to reallocate transportation bond funds. Can I get a motion?
So
Okay, I want to know exactly what it is that we're voting on.
we need a support.
Once we get
first to
support, we
discuss.
can do the discussion.
Okay.
Okay,
There we go.
Lord. What are we are moving the funds from the transportation building that were allocated to build it to the projects with the overages currently. Is that correct?
Which are specifically
The
Betsy Valley,
Betsy Valley,
locker room,
Locker room.
renovation.
Locker rooms.
yep,
And potentially.
and
the
potentially
weight room
the
addition.
weight room addition and potentially the elementary, even though we don't know it's
And
over
phase
yet.
2 of
Of
this
the high
campus.
school.
Yeah.
It's
My
a whole bunch.
understanding though is
There's a
at the
whole
end
bunch
of it,
that
if
we
there
have
is money to be able to go back and say, okay, we have covered the other projects, there is still this money, and we have sinking fund money, and we have general fund money that could complete a transportation project, we could do that. It's not like it's 1,000% scrapped
That makes,
until we know it's just been put
it does make sense.
last.
At this point, we can't technically move forward with awarding contracts for things that we can't
Pay
afford
for.
right now. So we have to have a way to show we're going
We
to.
gotta cover it.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Yes.
6-1. Approval of, are we doing that?
Of the locker
Locker
room.
room.
Locker rooms. Oh, I crossed it out. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Approval of the high school locker room remodel bids. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approval of the weight room addition bids.
You waiting on
That's the
that?
one we're tabling.
Mm-hmm. So do I need a motion to table
I move that we table that one and discuss it again at next month's meeting. And we have a little bit more information.
it? Do I have a second?
Support.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approval of Betsy Valley Elementary remodel bids. Can I get a motion?
Support.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approval of letter of agreement between Benzie County Central Schools and Benzie County Secretarial Association. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approval of return to Benzie plan. Can I get a motion?
Support.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Approval of policy 2201, board powers, general powers, and policy 4601. Can I get a motion? And then we'll discuss what it is.
So moved.
Discussion?
Yes.
Sure. So these are the policies that we read last month, and these are the official approval, waiting the 1 month for review. This one gives authority to the superintendent to do day-to-day operations as needed.
Oh, what a novel concept.
Mhm.
It sounds like it was mostly pertaining to like COVID. So
Yeah.
being able to make those changes.
Right.
Mhm.
Like what we had to do with the health department change that
Yeah.
came out. Yeah.
14 days.
Does it give you the power to override the health department?
Nope.
No,
We tried.
unfortunately, it does not.
Sorry, I figured I'd ask.
That's a
Throw it
good
out
try.
It's
there.
always a good question to ask.
Yeah, one czar in charge, why not have another?
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approval of policy 3119, experimental pilot program. Can I get a motion?
So moved. Support.
Any discussion?
This is the one that allows, it gives us guidance on how to set up pilot programs or new programs that maybe are not something that would be district-wide.
Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approval of policy 4205, hiring and background checks. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Any discussion?
This one just gives the guidance around how to handle confidentiality around hiring and background checks.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approval of policy 4205-AG-1, criminal justice information security. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
This is the form that would be used. It's an internal form for the background checks.
It looks like when you read through the Troon stuff, they are coordinating with Michigan State Police
Correct.
essentially
Yes.
to keep, like maintain background checks.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't see 2306.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? L, approval of policy 2306, board member compensation. Can I get a motion?
Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
gonna say.
Is there an issue?
The language in it to read what you get per meeting, how many meetings per year you're allowed, that kind of thing.
So have we talked about this yet?
I didn't see this one in here.
We actually, when you originally did this, the true policy at the beginning, we intentionally left it blank. Justin
I don't know if we can
asked, because we
approve
already
it. Yeah,
had
did first read.
Justin is asking we approve it. Terms of your compensation and how many minutes.
So you're asking to reapprove what you guys already have as a general understanding of the $50 a meeting and the number of meetings that you're allowed to be paid for out of the year. Like right now, that's sort of a general understood, but it's not written down anywhere. So that was not included when the.
Have we had a
So
cap
I don't-
on meetings in the past?
Yeah, I think we need to table this and have a discussion on it because this hasn't been presented to us.
Yeah,
I
I
really-
didn't see any info on it, I guess.
This came up from the auditor when the audit came, and that's why Justin had asked for it to be approved. So we can table it until next month.
Let's
Yeah.
table it till next month.
Please.
Yeah.
I
Do we
would
have
move that
a-
we table this till next month, because
Yeah.
I'd like to know what sort of cap there is. that
Yeah.
we're talking about, and what exactly meetings it applies to, and that kind of thing. So, can we table that?
Support.
Any discussion?
Scared me.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, audience participation. Anything, Lori? Board communication. Any funding from any board members? Announcements?
I don't think we have any.
Can we get graduation date? I know you and I've talked, but that so we can get it on our calendars. Seeing it's now 2022.
I believe it's the 6th, but
Fifth.
5th,
Yeah.
Sunday.
Yeah, we looked it up last night. And do we know the time if we are? I think we talked about that too. We can figure that part out.
I
So
think
put
it's 3 p.m.
Okay.
on the 5th. It is on the district calendar.
Okay. Anything else for announcements? Can I get a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh. Okay. I'm sorry.